Hey, everybody. We got a hot mic here. Got a hot mic. SNL? Anyone? No? Old school SNL skit? Okay. Thank you. One person. They said to just come up and tell my story, so hopefully I will do a good job at telling my own story. I've had about 0 minutes to think about it, but I did write down a couple of things. But again, it's my story. I can tell it how I want. So that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully there'll be some kind of, takeaway or point or whatever, or at the very least, you'll have gotten to know me, which is kind of unfair because I'm excited to get to know all of you, and now you're going to know me and I won't know you. But I look forward to sitting down with every one of you at when it makes sense and we have time to do that. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And if you know anything about that area, you would know that it's a Dutch Christian Reformed area. My last name is Dykhouse, so that's a very Dutch name. I'm a thoroughbred, thank you very much. The Christian Reformed Church is, at least in my experience, was very, the church I went to, okay? The church I went to was boring, okay? I grew up with a church that I thought was boring. It was only about the rules. Nice people, and my friends were there. But that was the extent of my liking of church. So we would go twice on a Sunday in Christian Reformedom. You not only go in the morning for church, but there's a second service in the evening. Pastor's got to preach twice. So if you might consider this as you go into ministry. And so we would go back at night, and then Monday was boys club thing with projects and study time, and then Wednesday was catechism. And my point is that basically we would, if the doors were open, we were there. Sunday nights after church, after second church, we'd go to youth group. We were there all the time. And again, it wasn't bad. My friends were there, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. And so much like Nebraska, there was it was tornado country. And I remember my sisters, and I have an older sister and a younger sister, we'd always get really excited when there was a tornado watch because it meant we didn't have to go to church on a Sunday, So we were like, yes, tornado, we don't have to go to church. Which I found out was a little odd later, but at the time it seemed normal. So I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Grand Rapids feels a lot like Omaha does, I think, family-friendly, about the same size. So good stuff. Baseball was my passion growing up. I remember towards the end of my baseball career, which ended in middle school, I remember being excited because I had a middle school uniform and a city league uniform. So I was pretty excited. I laid them out both on my bed, and I was like, this is it right here. I'm going. I play for 2 teams right now. I'm definitely going to be in the major leagues someday. And so that was something I thought about all the time. My friend Nick and I would throw the baseball back and forth across the playground, and after school then play one-on-one with ghost runners and all that stuff. Did that a bunch. So in high school, I went to a Christian school all my life. In high school, South Christian High School, I got my first taste of leadership. We had Young Life at our school. If you're not familiar with Young Life, it's a parachurch organization that does outreach to high school and middle school students. You'll hear more about that later. But they have a Bible study, and at that school, it was on Friday mornings, and again, it was a Christian school. The club meeting, where it was here's the gospel, was on Monday nights, but on Friday mornings, they did campaigners, was the Bible study, and it was the largest campaigners in the entire world. Over 250 kids would come to this, all from that school. And so we would do some singing, and then we would break up into smaller groups. So my senior year, I became a small group leader, and they would give me a sheet, and I would take the prayer requests and read the scripture and have questions to discuss. And so that was my first kind of taste of leadership. I got cut from baseball in high school. It was sad. I cried both times. Meaning, when I say both times, because I tried out twice and got cut again. So I ran track instead. And when I say I ran track, I mean I high jumped and I ran the 800 because that was only 2 times around. I ran track for the social events, I like to say. So all my friends were doing that. So my baseball dreams had been dashed by the coach and my ability. And so ran track, but taste of leadership, for me, my faith journey at this point was like it always had been. There was no real, there was nothing really personal to it still. I was going about what I needed to do. I was still going to church when I was supposed to go to church, but there really was no personal relationship with the Lord. There was no dependence on the Lord. This is what we did, and there was no why behind the what. And so in high school, it was doing the right thing, went to Christian school. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it was hard for me to separate, especially going to Christian school, separating performance from, even in your faith, from just my relationship with God. All of our lives are set up in a way that we are measured, right? Throughout our entire life. As soon as you get into school, you get grades, and you're measured. You play sports, and it's measured. And even if you do the arts, right, it's measured. You're good, you're better, you're not so good. Here's how to get better. We like you, we don't like you. We like this music, we don't like that music. And so it's easy. In fact, I'd say it's almost impossible for that performance lifestyle, that performance thinking, not to creep into our faith. And so that's what it was for me. I was going to a Christian school. I got measured on my grades and took Bible class and got measured on that. So I was very performance-driven in my faith. I also feel compelled to mention, I don't know why, but it's just a funny part of my growing up. Like I went on a total of 5 dates in high school. We had junior senior banquet, and so I wanted to go to that. So I wanted to invite somebody. So I did, but then we'd never gone out on a date. So 2 weeks before junior senior banquet, we went out on another date with another couple. So I had date before junior senior, next year the date before junior senior, and then one like major group date with the cross country team, which was the other thing I did. So, but you had to ask somebody. So I asked this girl, and she was willing to go. So I had 5 dates in high school. Wasn't a focus for me apparently. Well, it wasn't a focus for any girls anyways. I was focused on them. See my point. Off to college. I went to Calvin College in Grand Rapids, Michigan, right there. I wanted to go into sports medicine, so I thought, I'm going to look for some colleges, and I picked up this brochure in my guidance counselor's office, and I was like, oh, they have a good program. It was like several hours away in Indiana, and this would be good. This might be a good place to go. So I was thinking about that, and it just dawned on me, like, if I go there, I will know no one, and it will be far from home, and so I don't want to do that. And I folded up the brochure, and I stuck it back in the rack, and I left and said, I'm just going to go to Calvin, where all my friends are going, and that's what I did. It's the only place I applied. I was able to get in and went there. I did study sports medicine, and so yeah, I have a degree in sports medicine. I was going to be an athletic trainer. That never really panned out. Stayed on the straight and narrow in college, did the right thing, was performance-based in my faith. Had my first girlfriend, dated her for over a year. I was pretty excited about that. Thought she was the one. She wasn't. More leadership opportunities in college because so you learn a lot from things you do wrong sometimes. I think, in fact, you learn more when you make mistakes than if you just do things well. And so we're sitting in my freshman year. We're in the dorm on the floor. I kind of wanted to be on leadership. I didn't really know why. And we were going around in this meeting of guys, and anyone who wanted to be on leadership had to say, like, what they were going to do as a leader, Like, we've been here 5 days. I have no idea what I'm going to do. The guy before me went on and on about some stuff and like how he was like, well, maybe we can get a pop machine on our floor. That'd be great. And the guys were like, yeah, let's do that. And I got to me and I was like, ditto. But, I didn't know what to say. That's literally all I said. Ditto. And everyone's like, awkward silence. They moved on. I didn't win. I don't know why. So I learned a little from that, and I made some friends and did college. And the next year, dorm leadership came around, I knew a lot of people. We hung out. I ran for, I forget what I ran for, but I was vice president with my friend who was the president, and so I was on dorm leadership my sophomore year, and after my sophomore year, I had gotten a little bit involved with Young Life as a volunteer, and they said you should go to Young Life camp this summer and be on summer staff, is what they call the college students that help out. So I was getting my lifeguarding, what do you call it? Certification, thank you. And by the way, again, failed at that. I was in swimming class. No, I was in lifeguarding class, and they were like, yeah, that stroke is unrecognizable. You should probably think about this again. I was like, I need it because I'm going to camp. And they're like, well, here, go to this guy's swimming class, make that stroke recognizable, then come back. So I had to go do that, came back, got my certification barely, and went on to Young Life camp that summer and was a lifeguard. Drove the boats and pulled kids' tube in, sat in the chair, did the whole thing. It was a riot. Came back from that and said, I want to get involved in this Young Life thing. I really like being around students. So they put me through volunteer training, and I did that and started getting involved with a startup in a middle school Young Life. They called it Wildlife, which was appropriately named. And I became a leader there. And so I was doing that, and they said, you should help out with Calvin College Young Life too. They've got this college Young Life thing going, and it kind of recruits leaders, but you should maybe help out with that. So I started helping out with that, and by my senior year, they said, maybe you would lead Calvin College Young Life. Well, I really wanted to do this middle school thing still, and I decided I had to choose one or the other, and decided that the leadership opportunity for Calvin College would be great, do that Young Life. So I did that, was the senior leader of College Young Life. And so through that senior year, things changed for me. I was still a sports medicine major. I was still doing, getting my hours in the training room, trying to get my certification and taking class and doing all that. But my advisor, by the end of the year, even told me, he said, Andy, I saw, whereas before, you used to get people to cover your Young Life stuff so you could be in the training room. You started getting people to cover your training room stuff so you could work with Young Life. And my focus shifted to ministry. They also said, hey, have you thought about being on staff with Young Life when you graduate? And it hadn't really crossed my mind at all. I was focused on doing what I was doing. So they said, well, you should consider that. And January of my senior year, they said, hey, we're doing interviews. Do you want to interview? And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll interview for that. And I interviewed, and they said, you should come work for Young Life. And partly because I was really interested in doing that and felt a little bit called to do that. If I knew what that meant at the time, I'm not sure. But I went and worked for Young Life, not only because they said I should do it, but because I didn't have all my hours for my certification for athletic training, and I needed to get my hours and take a test, and that wasn't done yet. So I thought, well, what the world? This will be great. So I went to work for Young Life, and I moved across the state a couple hours away and started working as an intern with Young Life. It's a 2-year internship, and that was my dream job. Honestly, I thought this is the best thing. I don't know how I got here really, except that, man, this is like Young Life staff in my mind were like it. I thought this was going to be great. So I did that. But my boss, the area director, didn't really know what to do with me. She was like, I don't know how to manage this amount of staff. There was one other administrative person, and now me, and so she quit. She said, boy, the area has outgrown my gifts. I don't know how to do this. At least that's what she told us. And so she stopped being the area director. So my second year as an intern, I was kind of left there, kind of playing the area director role, but not really knowing what I was doing, not having been really trained by her, and kind of got put in this leadership position. So that was my second year on staff. And after that, they said, well, why don't you be the area director, or would you rather have someone else be the area director? And I said, I just have a lot to learn. I'd really like to learn from somebody how this is supposed to work. So why don't we find an area director? So we did that, and I learned from him. He also didn't really train me up that well. I observed a lot, by watching him, but I felt like I learned all I could in about a year's time. So after watching this guy, I kind of learned what I could by observing, but he wasn't really intentional about training me up. And so now I'm like the second staff person in an area that normally doesn't have two staff like that, and it kind of got awkward, and what was my position, and I was leading a Young Life club, but it wasn't going that great. During this time, I also met my wife, Allison, and that's kind of a good story, too. She was in college still. She was volunteering with Young Life, and I was on staff, and we, in the summers when you're on Young Life staff, you have to do an assignment. You have to go to camp and work for a month. So I was set to do that. It was at Castaway in Minnesota, my favorite camp. It's where I was a camper. It's where I did my summer staff. It was the best camp I thought ever. This was going to be great. And then they called me and they said, "Listen, we've got a guy who got his assignment the same time he's supposed to bring kids to camp. So would you switch with him?" I suppose I could do that. What did you have in mind? Well, we want you to go to Southwind. Southwind was a tiny little regional camp near Orlando, Florida. It was a dump. I was so disappointed. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Really? Do I have to do that?" And they said, "Yeah, we need you to switch." I said, "Fine, I'll do that." Well, this girl, Allison, who I'd met before, and we'd hung out a couple times in a group, ended up also being down there as a volunteer, and it was against camp rules to date, okay, while we were at camp on assignment. So we didn't. But I did sneak out of the cabin a couple times to hang out by the lake and look for the alligator with her. So I'm just saying that's what happened. As soon as we got done with camp, though, we went to the airport, and I was like, finally, this is the best. And we dated for 6 months and got engaged, and 6 months later we got married. And so that was all happening here after college. Allison switched colleges. She was going to a regular school there in Grand Rapids. And we found this little school near where I was living, and she transferred after we got engaged. She had a year and a half left, and she got a better education for half the price, we say, because she really loved it. It was a ministry-focused school, not like this one, and so we loved that. She graduated with a youth min degree, something I didn't even have, and we thought we would kind of do Young Life together. We did that for about 3 years, had students over to our tiny little apartment. It was great. We were doing ministry. But despite our best efforts, we had kids right away. So I brought a couple pictures of my family just to show you who comes with me. So that's my wife, Allison, and our 4 kids. Hopefully you get to meet them sometime. This is actually about 2 years old, this picture, but this is the one that you expect to see, but the one we really like is this one. That's a much better picture of who we are as a family, okay? We're a little goofy. We like to have a lot of fun, so anyways, that's where we ended up with 4 kids, and that's where we're at today. They're between, my youngest is about to turn 7, my oldest is 11, and we're busy, but they're good folks. Love them. So anyway, started a family around that time. So Young Life was getting weird. I was not certain about my role there, and I started to kind of underperform. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing with Young Life. We weren't hanging out with students at the high school enough, and the regional director got involved, and I got done with Young Life. I don't remember getting fired or being let go. I remember some conversations that were really tough about that. But I got let go from Young Life. I got done. And a few months later, actually right away when I got done with Young Life, I went to work for a friend of mine who was doing residential architecture. I didn't have a degree in architecture. I didn't know what I was doing, but he taught me, and I learned AutoCAD and started drawing stuff, houses, insides, outsides of houses. It was great. That lasted about 4 months, and right about Christmas time, we got back from a day off at Christmas, and he said, I don't really have any work for you to do today, so why don't you take a couple days of vacation that you've earned, and that's that. I'm really sorry. And I said, well, I answer the phone around here, and it's not ringing that much, so I get it, but that was tough. So did that for 4 months, and then started looking for a job. I loved residential design, so I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go after this. I had no degree. I had very little experience, but this is what I was going to do. About a month and a half into that, the Lord was super clear with me. I don't know if you've had a moment like this, but it's like to you it was audible, right? It was this really strong impression, like God said to me, I wired you and Allison to do youth ministry, so stop avoiding it. And I kind of was avoiding it. Like I thought, yeah, I did that, but it's time to get a real job, you know? And so we got kids and stuff. But he was super clear with me. And so I told Allison, of course, Allison being, intuitive, more intuitive than me, she said, I came home from this service I was at church, and I said, I'm pretty sure God told me we need to go back into ministry. And she goes, yeah, I know. Just waiting for you to come around. So clearly the smarter of the two of us. But so we started looking. We started looking for a church, and so we felt called to do youth ministry in the church now. So we started looking, and long story short, we had to keep expanding our search. We had kids. We thought we'll stay by the grandparents. We need to keep this kind of close. But things wouldn't work out. So that first summer, that was February when we felt the call back. That summer we had like 5 churches lined up that maybe this would work out at. And either we didn't feel good about it, or we'd get down to like 1 of 4, and they didn't pick us. So nothing worked out that first summer. We, let's see, so then we were kind of getting through the winter there. That next February, a year later, there was a church in Grand Rapids that was looking for an outreach director for youth. I thought, this is perfect. I've been doing youth ministry. Young Life is outreach. I'm 1 of 80, but we're gonna get this. And we got down to 1 of 4, and they picked somebody else. So we said, we have to get some, make some changes financially. So we moved back in with my parents. We had 2 kids, I think, yes, at the time, and we're thinking, man, could this get any worse? But we moved back across the state, moved in with my parents, and kept looking. I want to mention, though, during this time, like I'm working at these weird places. Like I worked at a machine shop for a while, making parts. I delivered pizzas for a couple of weeks. That was until I found a job cutting grass with the same company I did in college. And so, you're making it work as you go along. So we have 2 kids, 2 school loans, no job, and I'm working all these weird jobs, just trying to keep it together. Moved back in with my parents, and pretty soon we were able to move into a subletted house. And that next summer, a year and a half kind of in, I got an email from George Moore, who was the senior pastor at West Hills Presbyterian Church in Omaha, Nebraska. And he said, "Are you still looking for a job?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And we started emailing, started to call, and again, long story short, we flew out, did an interview, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come work for West Hills as the youth director?" And that's what we did. A little further away than I had hoped from the grandparents and all that stuff, but it's been awesome. So got to West Hills and learned a lot. I had no idea what I was doing in church ministry. It's different than parachurch. So we did a lot of different things, and I learned a lot. It was really an interesting time. George Moore, the senior pastor, already had defeated cancer one time. But just a couple of years, not even 2 years ago now, George passed away from cancer after 10 years. And that's where we've been the last little while at West Hills, looking for a new senior pastor. And all of that I say because as I wrap this up I've realized over the last 6 months to a year that ministry, it's never done. And I think you guys realize that. But your role as a leader in any church or any organization that's doing ministry will probably outlive you, right? Either you're going to move on, or that's probably what will happen. You'll move on from that place, but that place and that ministry will continue. So it got me thinking about transition of leadership and how we do that and how we do that well. And I hope we modeled that well for West Hills as I left doing that and came here. And now again, the transition initially has been easy because my wife, the youth min major, took over at West Hills for the time being in the interim, and will lead through the summer. But we need to think that we need to know that this idea of ministry, this thing that we're training for, this thing that you're way ahead of me when I was your age, trying to figure out what was going on, took a job with Young Life because it was easier than doing sports medicine, and you're getting trained to do this, but the reality is that ministry is bigger than you are. And that ministry will probably outlive your time there. We have to lead as if there's a transition coming. We need to work in a place knowing this is bigger than me, and I'm going to have to pass this off someday. And if you do that, you lead differently than if you're leading like this is the last thing you're going to do, or that this is going to die with you, this ministry. It reminds me of the story at the very beginning of Joshua, or at least that's where we'll pick it up. You know, Moses has been leading the Israelites for a long time. He's been the guy. He led the Exodus. He's the man. He does not live forever, right? He passes away, and he has to transition leadership to Joshua. And some other things came up. But Joshua 1, right at the beginning, it says, after the death of Moses and the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, which, by the way, is the only guy in the whole Bible without a dad, Joshua, son of Nun. That was a joke. You guys can laugh at that. It's biblical humor. Okay. Tough crowd. So Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide. Moses, this is God talking to Joshua. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people, get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to the Lebanon and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country to the Mediterranean Sea, to the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them. Be strong and very courageous. That end there, it says, I will be with you as I was with Moses. And that's something I've had to hold on to as we've transitioned in the death of a senior pastor. As I transition into this new role as the Institute lead for Nebraska Christian College, I don't know what I'm doing yet, right? I mean, I have a pretty good idea, but we're making it up. We're figuring it out. I can't wait to be with all of you and really get going on this thing. But, if I didn't think, had I not been thinking about it, and I wasn't always, the truth is, right, you're just kind of doing ministry in the moment. But we've got to think about it as I'm going to transition this someday. And what I really love about what I'll be doing here is I'm constantly helping people transition into ministry. That's going to be awesome. I don't think I could be more adamant or excited about that role, because I've seen way too many people not transition well. I've heard way too many stories of leadership, of poor leadership in churches, friends of mine in youth ministry that were told, hey, just come work for us. There's no job description, just do youth ministry, it'll be great. They never once were evaluated on how they were doing, and they got let go because it was a poor fit. All the same leader that whole time. No job description, no evaluation, let go because it wasn't a good fit. That's poor leadership. I've heard that story way too many times, and I don't want to see that happen anymore. We can't afford to have the church not be led well by people who get why that's important, that get that scenario happening to the youth leader affects way more than just the youth leader, right? All those students, all those families are impacted by this. It was just a couple weeks ago, I heard another similar story. It's still happening. You're going to end up in churches where some of that stuff's going to be happening. Have you thought about that? You're being trained really well as a leader. You're going to go work for churches and for leaders or people who aren't as good of a leader as maybe you've been trained to be, and you're going to have to try to lead up. What does that look like? How are we going to do that? We have to be thinking about these things. This whole thing, though, is bigger than us, and God is the constant. God is the one that will transition one to the other, but we want to be as best prepared to do that as we can, and we want to do it well and model it well, and we want to remember that in the midst of all we're doing. So part of what we're going to be doing with the Institute and helping lead and train you guys up. Can't wait to get started. Thanks for listening and kind of laughing at my jokes. And we'll see you around, I know, and I'm really excited to get to know you. So please be gracious with me as I learn your names and all that stuff. But really, really, really can't wait to get going on this gig. So thanks for coming.